Hello, hello, hello. It is the Adroit Living session of the Erudition Network. This is a live, interactive, volunteered effort for me to help with mental health and well being. So, we talk about a lot of different things here, and a lot of times it could be a little sensitive, but it's intended to reach the whole person so you can not only help one aspect of your person, but every aspect of your person. So with these live streams, I like to do something that it interacts with the audience, answering questions and um, addressing some topics that I was asked to cover. But today is March 24th, 2025, and we're going to give the audience enough time to come in. I've been away for 2 weeks. I needed some time away, had some things I was doing, and I was researching some things, and you know, work just gets into the mix and you trying to do the volunteer stuff at the same time of doing regular life and all that juggling. And it's Women's Month. So we don't want to exclude what time it is. It's Women's Month. I want to talk about a few things. Um, Sometimes it's like people really want to know, how do you know these things? And that's a good question, because you don't want to just go by what somebody else tells you because they're regurgitating something somebody else said. It's like eating up some vomit that somebody else spit out, and now you trying to put it out there like it's meaningful. And no, learn it for yourself. And when you learn it for yourself, then you can help someone else. And that is how I operate. That's how I've been operating for a very long time now. I don't want to date myself, but I'm just saying, for a very long time. So I try to come on every Monday, but some Mondays I don't come on. So like, subscribe, and share, and ring the bell so you will know when I'm on. You'll be like, oh, it's a notification. What's that notification? My girl on, my girl. All right, that's what's up. So anyway, I like to show that, not all psychologists are, you know, up in the air, talking over your head, saying things you just don't understand, but we could be down to earth. There's just find whoever it is that you can relate to best, that can help build you and feed into you, and pour into you. But anyway, the question comes, how do I know the things that I know? Now, I wrote a book called Generational Wealth, Information Asymmetry, and Your Success. It's available on Amazon and lulu.com. You can also ask for it wherever books are sold. But in that book, I try to explain very plain and clearly, the dynamics and the various nuances. But it's a very small book, as you can see. It's not a whole bunch of pages. I got some stuff in there marking some points. And I was going to read some abstracts, bits and pieces out of the book, so you can see that it's not talking over your head, and it's really helping with your whole man, with your whole person, and helping you to understand what you really need. It's like, do we really need somebody else to tell us or teach us and direct us and guide us? No, but it is helpful. I'm not gonna lie, it's helpful. And it's like, what books do we read in order to know? So how do you know what you need to know? Well, I remember being a little girl, and I was going to New Nation Ministries in Chicago, and Prophetess Dr. Hattie B. Jones was the pastor, but now she's passed, and now Rodney Jones is the pastor, and he's good. He's really good at the teachings and everything. But I was attending that church, and that's when I found that, there's a lot of things. And it was like, well, what's the roots? What's the grassroots of things? How do I learn what the grassroots of things are? And it was like, oh, I felt a bit overwhelmed and everything. Hey, Eddie, I appreciate you being here. Hey, Sean Anthony, I appreciate you all for being here and commenting. But there was this woman, Evangelist Yvonne Springs, and she gave everybody this Bible, and I still have mine. I remember my mom was like, well, Tina's not a reader. She doesn't read, so you don't have to give her a Bible. Her and her little sister can share one. And Evangelist Springs was like really animate and she's very giving. And she was like, well, everyone has one and I don't want her to feel left out. So she went to the pastor who was also her mother and they collaborated to talk to my mom and tell my mom, yeah, that's her Bible. Let her have it. And even though I wasn't much of a reader and I felt overwhelmed by reading, it's a big book and it's really like, look at these pages, man. Look at these words on the book. It's like, that's intimidating, all them little words and you gotta squint to see them. Maybe not squint, but I'm just saying it's a lot of reading and it's like so many chapters and everything and it could be overwhelming and I was intimidated by it, so I didn't really want to read it, but I did. And when I read it, I had an understanding that I was like not expecting. And from that, it continued to build. Oh, thank you. Y'all miss me being online? He said, you look great. I'm happy to see you. Did y'all miss me being online? I've been busy. A lot of times when you don't see me online or social media, I'm doing a lot of research and I'm trying to do me. I'm trying to do what I do so I know how to do various things. For example, it was because of that group of women who supported my learning that I was able to not only learn this, but a lot of people's like, well, that Bible that you read, it's not what you think it is. It has a lot to do with white people telling black people how to live a godly life, not necessarily a Christian life, because I don't like to put that kind of labels on things because the Baptist, Apostolic, Pentecostal, all of them were using the same Bible. So I don't know about all the labels, and even that was intimidating. And I was like, man, we just need to narrow it down. A faith in God. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to continue to grow my learning. And I learned a lot of different things. Even though a lot of times people want to narrow your research or your reading list to the books that they want you to read and the things they want you to go over. I can't do that. I can't function like that. So when people were like, well, that Bible was something that white people told black people to do, and this is not really your cultural faith pathway. It was like, what? And I kept on searching and I learned a lot of Eastern faiths like Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Confucianism, even though they say Confucianism is not necessarily a religious practice, more so than it's a proverb, which is also incorporated in the Bible, Proverbs, the book of Proverbs. But the thing about it was like a staircase of learning and learning and learning on top of learning. And then I come to find this book, which is a very old book. This guy right here, John S. Mabidi, the African religious, I can't read backwards, and philosophy. He was in college when he heard some white people saying that African people did not have a faith in God. They didn't know a God. And not only did they not know God, they had many gods. And John S. Mabidi was in college, in a brick and mortar college, when he overheard these people having this misconception. And he was the one to inform them. He said, well, I'm African and I can help you with that understanding. Yes, we do know God. We know him very personally, and we are very faithful in our practices, showing that we know God, but they don't label it all the same because there's many cultural divides even within the African group and the African culture. So, and because there's many dialects. Why are there many dialects? Because the Tower of Babel, watch a couple of my episodes where I talk about it. The Tower of Babel broke us all up into sections and subsections and even more subsections. So we have a different dialect and different way of expressing and communicating. We even have a different way of writing. Go to my episode where I talked about how we write in using different letters and how that evolved over time to get the American alphabet. A lot of people don't realize that America is very young. It branched off from older countries who were more developed. Even though the Native Americans were already here, they still had their own world. It was like their own world because they had their own dialect, their own way of communicating, their own way of tending the earth and growing wealth and prosperity and their various practices. So it was like, how do you know what the set rules or guidelines are when you could just speculate and tell people, well, that person doesn't know that group of culture or whatever, they don't know, and then you quote unquote marginalize those people because they're not like you. They don't look like you, they don't talk like you, they don't act like you, and you're only dwelling on your ability as opposed to incorporating and learning other people so that you can grow your knowledge and be stronger in your mental health, because a lot of the gaps that we have as Americans in our learning and the way we prosper, we already have the answers over in the more well-established countries. The answers are there. And when John S. Mabidi overheard the conversation, everybody was looking at him like, I'm pretty sure, like, well, if you have such knowledge and you so smart, then why are you here in Americanized, you know, dialect learning this? Don't you understand? It's not about you teaching me to learn what you want to teach me. It's about me understanding there's gaps in my learning, and I want to understand things that we can do together, united as individuals, but collaborating for a united goal, a singular purpose, not necessarily to be perpetuating these barriers that keep us all divided. The Tower of Babel, when it was created, um, it was everybody together collaborating for one purpose, but that purpose was um an overreach. And God was like, no, let's individualize y'all, let's section you all off so that you can focus more on your persons and the reason why you here on this earth, as opposed to everybody focusing so hard on, I'm gonna build this building and this is gonna be a stairway to heaven. And it was like, okay, well, what do we need to know? And that's where we ended up back here with the how do you know? Who is this? Dustin. I appreciate you coming. Praise the Lord. We have a Holy Spirit and the deception. Yes. And a lot of times people do not put the proper emphasis on that. So I'm happy that you mentioned that. And that's why a lot of people are so confused as to, well, how does somebody know? But you see, in my book, I explain it really small, really detailed, a very exact in a very few pages. 123 pages, and a lot of it is just the definition, so it's not speaking over your head, and a lot of it is just well, it's big print, so anybody can read it, whether you visually impaired or not. But anyway, um Eddie said, hey Dustin. Okay, so when we sit there and we say, well, we don't know what books to read, let me tell you about this book. This book is about $3.95. $3.95 is what it was said to be. And the problem with that is, if you try to go buy this book right now, today, you're going to pay more than $4 for it. Because what they do, they put these books in a position where it's outside of your reach. Not only that, when I was studying for my PhD in industrial organizational psychology, I learned that a lot of the time the people were asking me, what books do I read? What studies was I reading? Where was I getting my information from? How do you know? They kept asking me, how do you know? Well, what books are you reading? What information? How are you getting this information? And every time I told them, they would go and then revise the information. And I would say, and then they would turn around and when they asked me again, well, how do you know? Well, what I read what you said, and it didn't say that. It said this. And I would say, that's not the version that I have. You see, you have to see it coming. You have to see the manipulation and the things that people want you to believe and follow. Just like John S. Mabidi was like, look, that's not the accurate information. And he had to go and publish his own works in order to get the truth out there. And then they went and priced it up so high so people couldn't even get it. And a lot of times they don't push it, they don't advertise it so that nobody will get those books, so everybody can push their own narrative and everybody can perpetuate those mishaps as incidental and not contrived. It's contrived for a purpose. And it's like, what is that purpose? Well, there's a difference between submissive and subservient. So submissive means you conform your will to whomever it is that's contriving and altering and trying to mold you. Only God needs to mold you. I don't care how and what way you believe and what pathway you trying to reach God and serve God and find the more of God. That right there is a fact. So then there's the subservient. The subservient means you don't have no will. You're a slave to whatever their will and their purpose and their ideologies, their methodologies. You're subservient to them. You don't have your own thought. And a lot of times, people thought, here in America anyway, they felt that women should be subservient. They should not have a will. They should not have a purpose of their own. However, when we look back into see how Jesus did things, and he showed us, now the Apocrypha was already written. So there was a Bible that was written before the Bible that I previously showed you. Before this Bible, did I put it over here? I got the Apocrypha over here, I think. But anyway, so there was some things that was already set in place, right? So when Jesus came, he said, look, I'm not trying to change what you are already doing, but I'm trying to tell you this is the way. So if you're trying to continue that motivation to get to heaven, but not cheat, by building a staircase, a Tower of Babel to get to heaven. If you're trying to get there, and it's not just your physical body, but your spirit. See, the Tower of Babel was a physical manifestation of what we were supposed to do spiritually. We're supposed to fix ourselves spiritually and build ourselves spiritually in order to get there spiritually, because in the blink of an eye, we're going to be changed. And this body that's kind of encapsulating our spirit is going to fade away. Everything's going to pass away. And we weren't emphasizing that perspective enough, that aspect enough. So God was like, well, let me help you out. I'm going to break you up in subsections. The Tower of Babel, we're not going to keep on doing that. And we're going to focus more on what the true purpose is. The true purpose is to love one another despite your sins, because no one is flawless. I don't care if you flamboyant. I don't care if you in the closet. I don't care what manner in which you decide to sin. All of it is your free will, and it shouldn't be outlawed and say, well, the law of the land says you can't do that. No, God gave you free will, and he told you to love your people through it, love your neighbors through it, not to isolate them and tell them what they can and can't do and outlaw it, so to make it seem as if they're quote unquote criminal, because now you've quote unquote criminalized free will. So you can't say, well, because you don't live your life the way I live it, or because you don't live your life the way Jesus said, this is the way, this is his will, and this is his way. But he did not change it to make it say, well, I'm going to change your free will, so now you don't have a choice. Free will gives you choice. Free will gives you options. And it's not to say that because God gave you a second chance or a third chance or 7 times 77 chances, it doesn't mean that every chance you get you're going to say, well, I'm going to continue to choose the wrong thing. Like God don't know you're going to keep on choosing, but he give you a chance so nobody can say they didn't have a chance. And it's like, how did you know this? Because just like John S. Mubidi, I went to a brick and mortar school. I learned in a brick and mortar status. And it wasn't just brick and mortar physical locations. It was also online where I wrote my industrial organizational psychology dissertation, where I put it in my book, and I quoted some things in there, so you can go in there, generational wealth, information asymmetry, and your success. Pick that up. It's got a whole bunch of everything in there, and it's gonna feed you really quickly, like that quick. Everybody wants that microwave, right? Everybody likes to eat from that microwave. Nobody really wants to cook from the oven, that crock pot and stuff like that, and stick with it until it's actually done. Don't worry about it. I did it for you. I did it for you. I understood what you were saying. I understood the assignment. Go get the book, Generational Wealth, Information Asymmetry, and Your Success. And why am I saying that? Because you want to know, what books am I reading? Where am I getting this information from? Because a lot of people, they only want to know because they want to alter the information so that when anybody else comes up and read it, they can say that you lied. And nope, I can show you. And that's why I use screenshots. I use screenshots to show exactly what it is. And I show you, look at this book. It's so old. I'm holding it together by some tape. That's how old this book is. Look, this is more obvious, and I'm holding it together by some tape. Anyway, there's and this book, this Bible is very old. I mean, look at the pages. It's already, it's very obvious that it's really old. But anyway, a lot of times, for example, the encyclopedias, Edmund Herschel, his encyclopedias, he was only bringing the understanding more to the modern ages, things that were said centuries ago, things that were proven centuries ago by philosophers centuries old, from places that people don't want to highlight, and want to say that those people are because they're marginalized. They don't know nothing. They can't do nothing. They don't have positive contributions to society to grow and advance us in the aspect that we are looking to grow. And that's not true. Just like John S. Mabidi said, that's not true. You can't keep pushing out a false narrative thinking that it will never come to light, because everything done in the dark don't come to light. What'd you say, Eddie? Old books are still useful. Yes, a lot of old books are still extremely useful. What's another old book? So Edmund Herschel's books, encyclopedia, showed that psychology, the study of the human mind and behavior, is a science, whereas a lot of people were saying that's not a science. Here's the Apocrypha. It's pretty thick too, but anyway, a lot of people were like, you can't do that, and they always trying to contrive and tell you what you can and can't do. Meanwhile, it's people lean into their own understanding, and that's the reason why they don't know anything. And then it's like, how do you know? Now, Eddie put together this book right here. It's also available on Amazon. It's very succinctly telling and explaining some things to you that you don't have to go and read all of the different books that he read in order to get it. That's over 400 books. That's over 400 sources that he's trying to show you that if you read all these things, you're gonna come up with what? Everything that's in this book. If you read all the 400 sources that he provided, you're going to come to understand everything in this book. And all them books are way more pages than this. So you can go out there and get that from AmazonLulu.com or ask for wherever books are sold, and you can get that knowledge succinctly and very quickly without being intimidated by having to read, Bibles and stuff and books like this that's so, little that you like, oh my God, I can't read all that. Same thing with John S. Mabidi's book. The script is very tiny. A lot of times people say, well, they edit it so that you can read it because the print is small or something like that. And That's not altogether true, because if you do a comparison, even with various Bibles, they say, well, it's the version of it. And yes, get the books. Like Eddie said, get the books. That's what I'm trying to show y'all. Y'all ask how you know I'm trying to show you. But I'm telling you already that the information that I have in these old books is not going to look like the same information that you will get in a freshly printed copy. Just like when I was doing my dissertation, they will go back and edit that stuff and then try to gaslight me and say, oh, it don't say that and you're not saying what it says. I'm gonna just say that devil is a lie, because I'm not stupid, I'm not gaslighting, and I'm not crazy. And you're not gonna play with my mental health as if I don't know. And that's why it's a lot of people, and we don't understand why a lot of people have this mental health problem. It's because so many people are gaslighting, so many people are altering things, so many people are lying. Have you ever had a job, and on that job, your manager told you something that was contrary to what your overall boss would say, your boss and a boss, and then they lied in the meeting, said, well, it's your fault. You gonna take the fall for it. And you know full well that's you did exactly what you was told to by your direct supervisor. Yeah, that's that kind of gaslighting that you see in places that we call quote unquote safe spaces in schools. But again, that's why I'm trying to tell you, how do you know? Because you have to go out there and branch off and find these things so that you can obtain the same knowledge, the same education, the same understanding in these very small books, because they use sources that are founded in actual facts. That, for example, biblically, wait, I'm going to show you the first one. Um, Pastor Razor's book, Biblically Black and Blessed. It is a very, very good book. It's a lot of information in a very small writing. I'm trying not to show too much of it, but he got some maps in there to show you. And look at that print. It's not small. It's a very small book to read. And you can read it, but it's power packed. It's got so much information in there. And a lot of people may be turned off by saying, oh, well, it says biblically and it says black. And those are two words that we don't really want, because we don't want to associate ourselves and feel compelled to follow a particular faith. But that's not what it's about. It's about showing you how in the Bible, it tells you historically how, why, when, and this is why you know, even though nobody telling you. This is how you know, even though you have to, this is how you know you're being gaslit, even though you have to learn that you were being gaslit, for a fact. So you have to get these books, because a lot of times it's innate in us and we don't know how it's innate in us. It's in your DNA, it's in your RNA, it's in the development of your brain when you were in the womb before you were ever born. When God called your name to be born, he put something in your brain so that you'll be triggered when a certain time comes. So when the appointed time comes, you're going to be triggered and turned on, and now you're going to go and live in your purpose. But you need the foundations that you have, the experiences that you have, the pathways that you have before you get to that point, because it's something in that pathway that's going to help other people that's in your path during that time. Not just the people where you going, but where you've been, if that makes sense. But anyway, there's another book by Pastor Razor, Biblically Black and Blessed too. And in there he tells you various things, and it's not to tell you, oh, this is the faith that you need to follow. These are the steps that is not the purpose. It's to help you to understand and substantiate your learning and your growth and development in a manner in which can't be wavered. A lot of these times you go and get these other books and they alter in those books, but you see, Pastor Razor, he's still alive. He's still alive. So nobody's gonna go and alter his book like they can with like they can with John S. Mabiti, new prints of his book, like they can with new prints of the Holy Bible, like they can with the Apocrypha, and like they can with. Okay, what about the very handwriting book that you're supposed to use? Like, for example, this, or what is They changed this one so much that it's ridiculous. And they make college students purchase this book and just so that they can, it's crazy. But and they also have these. Now you're gonna have to pause perhaps so you can see what it is I'm talking about, and you're gonna have to actually look at it. This is a video, so there's that. But they have these things so they can keep altering it and changing it. But my writings, my academic writings that you can find, my book that you can find, it's all rooted in these very old books that don't have a cover anymore. These old books that's like, oh, what is that book? Now my dissertation, it stems from a lot of the signaling theories that were found in signaling detection theory and physical, well, let me see, waves. Okay, we talk about how God spoke, right? How he said he changing day into, he's separating light from day and calling it day and night. But at first it was together, and we can't visualize or conceptualize how can God speak and this just be. It's a wave, it's signals, and this is a motion. I in previous episodes I showed how in my aquarium the light, I mean the air that's being pushed through the air machine is going through a air hose and then coming through the water as bubbles, and how that air is a motion, is a wave, and it's creating waves, and it's pushing that thing through, and it's going to keep on going until it accomplishes its goal. But a lot of times we can't see that air, that same air, when we're not underwater. We can't see that air moving things in the atmosphere. We can't see all these things that's all the nuances that's working together to create things that we're looking for to happen, and seeing and understanding how these things are happening. And in my book I try to help you understand very clearly, very succinctly, so you're not confused anymore, so nobody can gaslight you anymore, so nobody can alter a book and tell you, oh, you're mistaken, that it didn't say that here. And then you try to go to your copy of your book, they say, no, don't worry about it, I got the book too, I purchased it here, you could just read my copy. I can't read your copy because you're going to show me the page number. You're going to say, well, it's on this page number, right? And on that page number, I'm going to go to that page number on your copy, your version of the book, and it's going to say something different. It's going to say what they were saying as opposed to what you already knew. And then when you say, oh, okay, my bad, I didn't realize, I guess I read it wrong, I don't know why, but I can visualize seeing it in my book when I'm sitting there reading it and sitting there highlighting and underlining or whatever it is that helps you to remember what you read, because it was so um heavy, so deep, so significant. You're like, I gotta remember this. But when somebody shows you their version, their copy of it, you're like, man, did I get it wrong? You didn't get it wrong, you got it very right. And in my book I try to help you so that you're not focused on the nuances that people have contrived and ingrained into your system to be able to follow and trust, because you need to understand things in a different way. You need to understand it. The book is written in a manner in which there's be more visualistic to help you to remember and to actually absorb all the information very succinctly. So when someone says something, you're like, no, that can't be true, because I understand gaslighting. I understand what y'all were doing when y'all was trying to make everybody seem like they didn't know what they were doing. Back when y'all tried to say marginalized communities and tell them, oh, well, you're a marginalized community, and we know that we sent you to our institutions to learn, but we already know what you learned there, because we contrived these things so that it would hinder or limit your abilities. So when you go and you become that anomaly who is advanced beyond what they taught you, they're automatically like, well, how did you learn that? How did you know that? Why do you know that? I'm telling you, if you get these books that I've showed you already, you're going to know how you know. I'm just saying, facts are stubborn. Eddie says it's factual information and needed for a greater understanding. And you know what? A lot of times people don't understand when they're sitting there trying to change the narrative and bend the facts. They don't understand that what it means by what's done in the dark will come to light. And they think that that light is so far off. So they say things like, oh, that's instant karma, or karma's going to get you later in the end. But a lot of times people don't understand because you're not watching the signs. You're not watching the signals. You're not seeing the holistic picture and understanding that that instant karma situation is right now. A lot of people are sitting there mad and they trying to say, well, you know, these are isolated incidents when people have these moments of mental breaks and they act in a way that is unpredictable. It was unpredictable and it was a mental break because that gaslighting built up. And it was like, I went to school and they taught me this, but then they turned around and told me that. And then it's like, now you got all this stuff piled up. I went to work and they told me how to work this thing. And it was like, well, that I don't understand what, and then they just explode. They just explode and have these episodes and they say, well, that was an isolated incident. And it's not. It's just not as much reported. For example, when COVID-19 first hit, President Trump at the time, he was president, he was like, well, stop reporting those cases. We're not going to keep on reporting it because if we keep reporting it, then people will um it'll seem bigger than what it is. And that's not, and a lot of people were saying, a lot of very educated people were saying that's not accurate. And a lot of people were dying because they did not know the information, because the information wasn't being put out there and it wasn't shown how they knew this information was happening. So a lot of people didn't trust what was being said, even though they were succumbing to the problem. They was like, well, we don't know why we weren't told before. And it's like, look, it's this book. It's this book. Look at that book. Work, 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 work. Just look at it. It's all goes all the way up and down. The concept of work, ancient, medieval, and modern, by Herbert Applebaum. I couldn't see, so I had to look at it like that. The light is in my eyes. But anyway, in this book, it shows you, you probably, like I said, might not get the copy that I got, but I'm just going to tell you. In that book, it shows, I'm going to break it down real clear. It shows how we try to trade this currency that we develop, and we try to trade that currency we developed to trade it for people's work, people's physical work or intellectual property. And we try to make this trade and say, well, I have this currency, I have this money, and you can use this and I'll give you this. But the problem is that money is wavering in value. It wavers in value, whereas the work stays consistent in value. And you would prefer the work over the currency, because the currency wavers in value. No one cares about it. You understand? No one cares. So you have this product that was developed to try to trade for this currency, and it's like that don't add up to it. So you can keep that currency. You can keep that currency because this product is far more invaluable. And that's why a lot of people was like, well, let's try to make these different things. Let's try to build these structures and these processes that will put more value in currency, so that we can say, oh, well, now this currency equates to a higher value of your intellectual property, your physical works produced by your own hands. And I was like, I don't know about that, but because I want that currency, I'll go ahead and value it at what you're saying it is. But it still doesn't equate to that. So it was messing with people's mind. It was breaking them mentally, and they was like acting out. After a while, like a tea kettle, you put that boiling water on the stove, and it's like after a while that water gonna beep, and it's gonna just start, boiling over, and you have to hurry up and get to it. And it's like you're gonna classify it as an isolated incident. Why? Because you don't want people to understand this is across the board. It is not exclusively mutual to a marginalized community, a quote unquote marginalized community. So, how do you know? Because history repeats itself so much that it's not exclusive to a particular culture, a particular location. It's not a demographic or geographic. It's not a financial status or a popularity status. It's not exclusive to anything. It's a fact. Facts are firm. Facts are a firm foundation on which you can stand and not ever waver. And no matter what comes, you're gonna know this. This is why I have strong mental health. This is why I know what I know, and I can stand on what I know, despite you saying, well, it'll be more, it'll hold more weight or more value if you put PhD behind your name or doctor in front of your name or whatever. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna withhold this from you until you do what we tell you to do. Well, if you get my book, I tell you some things, but when you're acquiescing to be what people call you to be or people name you, then you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong, and you're hindering your ability to have that mental health that you're looking for. You're going to inevitably explode if you continue down that pathway. That's why we're seeing it so often. And do you think it's news? No, it's not. Because I can show you some more books, but I didn't have enough space to put that here. Um, there's books that white people wrote to other white people so that they can educate them and say, as a matter of fact, that book that I showed you, Work, 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 that was a book written by white people to white people. And they were trying to show everybody and help people understand things that they was like, we don't care. We don't want to understand it. We know it, but we don't want to perpetuate that understanding as though it's relative to make people in all communities, marginalized alike, to feel valued, to feel that they equate to the amount of money that they should be awarded. Now, y'all got to stop saying giving somebody something. Stop saying that BS, because that's hurting people's mental health. You're not giving people nothing. They are earning it. What people am I talking about? African Americans, people of color, because you're not giving them nothing. You're not giving them anything. They have to earn it, and you still won't award it to them. And then you try to take it away from them to include their mental health, because you're gaslighting them on everything, talking about, well, how do you know? How do you know? This is the book that you use. Well, here, I have this same book. Go to that same page. What page was it? What paragraph? Oh, okay, let's read that together. Oh, nope, it's right here. Don't use your copy. Look at my copy. Then they ask you, well, how are you storing that information? That's what they asked me with the PhD. They was like, well, how are you storing your information? So what I kept finding was every time I tried to open any file, it was corrupt. And it was not only corrupt, I have a computer background. I thought that my educational background was going to just be psychology. It's not just psychology, because that's the chosen field that I want. It's the field that I am, because this is what feeds me. This is what I was doing ever since I was a little girl. They just put a label on it and a pathway to it. So I thought that this was what I was going to do, but it wasn't. There was other things that was incorporated into that, such as IT, the computer programming and hardware, software and hardware. So I have that background as well. And it was good that I did, because when I got to the level in which, from where I was going to where I was supposed to be, where I was and where I was supposed to be, that is when it came in handy. So I was able to see when I opened the file, I was able to read what the viruses and the malware and everything was, when it was saying, oh, look, you can't open this file because someone put something on it. Someone attached something on it that's going to alter everything. Now, I didn't tell you that. You just have to have that understanding in what these words mean. And this is what the words meant. It said it's going to if you open this file, it's going to alter all the other files, and it's going to put a bug into your system that's going to alter that stuff. So what I did was, I already knew, I saw it coming. See, with computers, back when I was learning about computers, you have to store information in redundancy. So you don't just have one method that you have it stored. You have multiple methods that you have it stored. Just like with these books, you can't just have that one book. You have to have another copy of that book and something else somewhere else. That's why I said I use screenshots, because you can't alter the screenshot without somebody knowing that it has been altered. You can't alter the books without somebody saying it's been altered. But a lot of times people don't read in the very beginning of the book where they're saying, oh, it'll be in the small print where it says, oh, this was edited or revised, or something that shows that, yeah, this may not be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. But we don't teach people that in the type of public schools I attended anyway, in the type of online schools I attended. They didn't teach me that. I learned it by myself on my own, because I pray, I fast, I consecrate, I study, I seek the more of God. And that understanding of that is perpetuated through everything that I do. That's why anybody who is seeking the more of God, He gonna open up your understanding to some things that people not trying to teach you, and maybe even hide the knowledge. For example, my dissertation is called Information Asymmetry and Knowledge Hiding in the Workplace Among Those People We Supposed to Be Trusting. Knowledge, I didn't come up with that. It was somebody else who came up with it, but it wasn't presented until somebody that everybody liked went out there and said it. And then everybody was like, okay, we can accept that. You saying it, we can accept you saying it. So, and it wasn't first by a woman. It wasn't first done by a white woman. It was first done by a white man. And then some time passed where a white woman came out and said it. So when these people started to say it, they was like, okay, we believe you. It's the same thing in any community. So don't think that it's racism, because in the African-American community, a lot of times we don't want to believe what some white person tell us to believe, because we can't trust them. They're not from our community. They're not about us. So we can't trust what they're saying. So it's not to say that there's a racial divide that's being perpetuated on purpose, even if it might be, but it's to say that you understand that sometimes you can't trust people that don't look like you. And sometimes you can trust people that don't look like you better than the people that do look like you. But the point being, these are facts, and I'm pointing out those facts for your understanding and mental health, because you may be thinking, well, when do I trust? How do I trust? How do I know? When do I know? What should I trust? I'm telling you, a lot of people feel like African Americans should not tell the things that white people say, but and not be labeled as being racist or biased in some sort of way. No, the collaboration of, for example, let's go back to the collaboration is important of diverse people. Let's go back to the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel, when God separated the people, it was not by their color of their skin, the texture of their hair, their height or gender, or their sin. It was only by the who that person was inside. And a lot of them look different. Some of them were Black, Asian, but they all had the same mindset, the same type of spirit, that they could collaborate together, because they was like, okay, well, we think alike. So those people had the same dialect. And that's how they were separated. It was only man who was like, well, let's be more divisive. Let's say This is how white women do. This is how black women do. This is how Asian women do. This is how Filipino women do. And let's keep on subdividing. And that's not the way it is. And that's why mental health is such a, so deteriorated at the level that it is, because we we thought that that's the way it was supposed to be, but when we live the experience, that is not the way it really is. So then our mental health starts to play with us. It starts to break, and we don't have that solid foundation of facts. So we're like, well, we don't know what to do, and we don't know how to do what we need to do anyway. So we give up, and we resort to some things that we regret, like being submissive or subservient, or being mislabeled as a marginalized community, when you are far stronger. You are far more dominant than recessive. You are the head more so than you are the tail. You are the help meet more than you are the person who is being told what to do every step of the way. It's crazy how people are using these manipulations to make people go insane. When they say things like, oh, I'm done giving you something. You didn't give me anything. You awarded proper acknowledgments. That's what you did. But despite whether you do or don't, it's not going to stop me. Just like it didn't stop John S. Mubidi. They could have gave him a book contract and made a lot of money off everything he said. But he had to go and publish his own works, because what they did was they wanted to manipulate it. They wanted to contrive it for a set purpose that only built them, and marginalize and further continue to marginalize the communities that they did not want to be included. And it's like, there's so many books that I can point out to you that will help you understand these things. But a lot of people, like when I was studying for my PhD, they was like, people not going to understand anything you're saying. And people are not going to read. They're not going to read. But here's another book you might want to read. So if you need the screenshot, go ahead and screenshot, because I didn't put it in the pictures there to bring it up. But that's another book you might want to read. This Pastor's Quadrant, Basic Science and Technological Innovation, is very easy to understand, and it helps you to understand why a lot of things is going the way it's going. It says on the back, it says, this book illuminates the tragedy of Don Stokes. That's the person who wrote the book. It's Donald E. Stokes. But anyway, his early death. And that's another thing people like to do. They like to hurry up and kill folks. But I'm just saying. Stokes was deeply thoughtful about the policy process, and also understood the science. It is very important that you not only have an understanding of processes, but you understand sciences as well. Anyway, as it continues to read, as the balanced budget philosophy increases downward pressure on science and technology budgets, Stokes lays out clearly how a more realistic view of the relationship between research for understanding and research for application could be a cooperation, as opposed to opposition. A lot of times I've said on my videos how some people, academia, who is the mental and intellectual, and then there's the practitioners who do the practical application, they're battling with each other. And yes, PSYOP is supposed to help them so reach a common ground, so we can have the advancements of both the academic, which is the intellectual, and the practitioner, which is the actual lived experience, the work, the physical manual work. But anyway, it continues to read, the model developed by Stokes should be studied and used by anyone interested in a more effective use of federal research and development funds. How many times have you seen, just most recently in the past weeks, how we're seeing fundings for various research be defunded because we don't understand, because widely um, general population don't understand how invaluable that research is. And a lot of times, let's be honest, a lot of those funds was being put into things that was like, man, y'all done put this into a boys club, y'all done put this in this money into a boys club, you put this funding into only what you want to perpetuate, instead of being completely transparent so we can really advance the way we did back in Don Stokes days. And now he's no longer here. And it's like, man, just because he's not here to stand on what he said what he said, and he was right with what he said. And there's a lot of other books that I can sit here and show you, but you have to watch the episodes. You have to read the material that I show you, because these episodes are only an hour long, and I don't have a whole lot of time to show you, even in the hour, without seeming to rant and talk about things and give what I'm doing in this 1 hour is giving you bits and pieces so that you can latch on to bits and pieces, so you can say, okay, you said something right there, let me go look at that. Okay, you said enough right there, let me go look into that. In the African American community, we say things like, enough said, say less. We gonna do what we gonna do and go look and see what's up. The reason why I'm telling you these things is because now, with the digital age and how smart people really are, you can see the enhancements and the modifications and things that I'm telling you. So you don't have to believe a word I'm saying. Go find out for yourself. Go look. And I show you. I tell you. I'm trying to help you, because I don't want to see you have that mental break. I don't want you and your family to lose out on the love that you were given because you had a mental break, because all that gaslighting and all this wavering value and wavering facts, which ain't really facts, it's just people's opinions highly pushed and perpetuated because it's not rooted in actual facts. A lot of times we want to see, well, where do we get these facts from? We get it from these old books. We get it from these old books. This is the oldest book I have. The Apocrypha is older than that. But the matter of the fact is, when you read these things, when you come to see for yourself, that's when you have that mental health that you are striving for, that you long for. And you're like, man, how do I get there? How do I get there? I don't want to read that big old book. I'm struggling to read that Bible because I don't understand a lot of things that it's saying. Well, if you just read it, don't stop there. Just keep on reading. Oh, I'm stuck here. I don't know what it's saying. I don't understand. Keep reading. Keep going. The further you get to the end of the book, it's always repeating itself, and it's using different scenarios and lived experiences from those errors to explain and elaborate further on the information that it presented previously. So keep reading, and the further you go back into to the back of the book of Ephesians is going to repeat some things and say, well, I told you this is the path, this is the way, even though previously all the other examples we showed you, they wasn't doing that path, they wasn't on that route. But I told you this is the way, and this is why I told you this is the way, because when we're about to tell you in the book of Revelation why it was important for you to understand that this is the way. But you have a choice. You have a choice to do whatever you want to do you, or you have a choice to pick the pathway in which going to get you a most desirable outcome. Even if you have your bestie is not the same as you, doesn't have the same lifestyle as you, they don't live the lifestyle you live. They're more flamboyant and they're more aggressively going into different things that you would probably never do, and they have all these other sexualities and labels and other things that you have. So what? That has nothing to do with the fact that God said, love ye one another. And it's through that love. For example, in the Bible, it says that a woman who, I'm just going to put it out in layman's terms, a woman who loves God, but her husband, a wife who loves God, but her husband is not that doesn't have that kind of love for God, she can sway him. not by telling him, not by browbeating him and nagging him, but she can sway him to have a love for God just by her living example. In the Bible, it talks so much about lived experiences. So you want to know how I knew my dissertation? It lived experiences. Why did I dwell so much on lived experience? Because that's factual. Nothing else is factual. I don't care what people are saying because they're altering it. And then you have to do a deep dive or be computer literate enough to see how people are altering that information and gaslighting you further because they're saying, oh, you thought you saw that? Now go look again. Go check again. Then you look again. You're like, well, it did say that. I guess I got it wrong. I guess I missed. I thought it was something else. And maybe I, conflated the two. You didn't. You didn't. And when it comes out, when everybody's done with this political craziness that everybody's doing, and it really comes out there that this was happening, and it's going to come out because everything done in the dark is going to come to light. When it comes out, then you're going to feel so much relief, but you're going to feel sad at the same time. It's going to be a bit of a melancholy because you're going to be like, man, I said something bad about someone who said that this is what was really happening. I said it didn't happen, and you don't know what you're talking about when what really it was. And now we all have to admit it and that we saw it. And now I feel bad about it. But again, I got you covered. I got you covered right here. Generational wealth, information asymmetry, and your success. A lot of times we don't realize that these books, when you're led to write these things, it's not just about your present time and your future time. It's about hitting different through every moment of time. Why? Because that is how we can strengthen our mental health and well-being. Well, that's been my time today. Actually, I went a little over, but you please remember, mental health is physical wealth. You can rewind this episode, see it more than one time so you can get all the information, watch it with different perspectives. You have the first perspective of, oh, I don't know what she's going to say. And then the second time you watch it, you're like, well, I know what she said, but she sounded kind of crazy, but she did say something in there that kind of triggered me. So I want to watch it again and get that. Keep watching. Watch at least 3 times and see if it doesn't help strengthen your mental health or just your information, your factual information that you have to grow yourself and strengthen yourself, because mental health is physical wealth. See you next episode. Mental health is physical wealth.